Good noon everyone. In today's session, we will discuss about the last part of urine formation, that is concentrating urine by collecting duct. This would be the fourth and the last lecture of urinary system. In this, the collecting duct begins in the cortex, where it receives tubular fluid from numerous nephrons. And in this collecting duct, you can see there is more and more absorption of H2O into the blood capillaries occurs, and this CD reabsorbs waters. So whatever the water is there, it can be reabsorbed from this collecting duct back toward the peritubular arteries. Driving force: the high osmolarity of extracellular fluid generated by NaCl and urea provides the driving force for water reabsorptions. So here you can see at this point there is a osmolarity of 300 milliosmoles per liter. After that it can be increased by 600, 900 and 1200. So as the time progresses, the osmolarity of the urine can be increased, means it become more and more concentrated, and finally the urine can form, so which contains maximum amount of solutes. So its concentration is 1200 milliosmol per liter. It's too much. Earlier it was less. Why it become much more? Due to the loss of water, because if water can be lost from this collecting duct, it will make this composition, it will make this urine more concentrated. So the high osmolarity of extracellular fluid generated by NaCl and urea provides the driving force for water reabsorption. Regulation: the medullary portion of the collecting duct is not permeable to NaCl but permeable to water depending on ADH. So that's why from here the water can be released but not the NaCl. NaCl, sodium chloride, will remain inside. That's why it will increase more solute into the urine, and that also depends on the level of ADH, antidiuretic hormone. If the antidiuretic hormone will be more secreted, more reabsorption of ions will be there. If less secreted, less absorption of ions into the blood. Control of urine concentration: that depends on the body's state of hydration. As we also discussed this earlier as well, that the urine concentration always depends on the state of hydration. If more dehydration will be there, more concentrated urine will form. If less hydration will be there, in that condition the urine concentration will be normal. In a state of full hydration, antidiuretic hormone is not secreted and collecting duct permeability to water is low, leaving the water to be excreted. So that's why in the full hydration the antidiuretic hormone is not secreted. If it is not secreted, so whatever the H2 is there, it can be released into the blood and more concentrated urine can be formed. In state of dehydration, ADH is secreted. Suppose if ADH will be secreted in case of dehydration, why ADH will secrete during dehydration? Because in dehydrated condition already lots of water has been lost from our body. So body cannot compromise, or body cannot afford to lose water again through urination. Try to understand these concepts. Here when there is normal condition, in hydrated condition, in that we can lose water through urine, but in this condition body is try to maintain its homeostasis, body is try to maintain its water electrolyte balance into our body. That's why during dehydration ADH automatically can be secreted, and due to which the water is not going to be lost into the urine, so it will be absorbed more speedily than in early condition. So in the collecting duct, permeability to water increases, so from here the more water will come toward the blood with the increased reabsorption of water by osmosis. So more and more water will come toward the blood, and the urine becomes more concentrated, and due to which this ADH and due to the dehydration, the urine become more concentrated, and it will also have some typical smell, and it is having more osmolarity as compared with the earlier condition. No more reabsorption of the tubular fluid leaves CD. So once the collecting duct can be, if the urine leaves this collecting duct, after this collecting duct no more tubular reabsorption or secretion will occur, because this is the last stage of this nephron. After that only the passageway is there, only the transportation of this formed urine will be occur. So from here, from this nephron it will be transferred towards the renal papilla, to the minor calyx, to the minor calyx to the major calyx to the renal pelvis to the ureter, through ureter to the urinary bladder and urethra, and so on. Urine properties. Now here you can see the composition of urine. It is a fresh urine, is clear, pale yellow color, containing no blood cells, and little proteins are there. In some conditions the amino acids can be released into the urine. In the renal failure, more protein can be released, like albumin and other proteins can be released. If cloudy, it could indicate the presence of bacteria, so it should not cloudy, or it may contain the semen. That condition is called as oligozoospermia. When that sperm comes in our urine, that condition is called as oligozoospermia. So that sperm should not come into our urine. If blood comes in our urine, that condition is called as hematuria. Hem means blood, blood comes in our urine, hematuria. Or the menstrual fluid also comes sometimes in our urine. Now this is the composition, the percentage of various elements which occurs in our urine as well as in some blood. In the blood, how much urea is there? It is 4.8 gram, but in case of urine it is 25 gram. Uric acid 0.8 gram, means whatever amount of blood is there, how it can be increased or decreased in urine, that you can see. Creatinine, it is more in urine. Potassium, it is also more, 2 gram. Chloride, it is 6.3. Sodium 4.6, etc., etc. So there should not be any bicarbonate or glucose in your urine. So this is the combination, how the various electrolytes and the waste materials can be excreted through urine. Urine volume. An average adult produces 1 to 2 liter of urine per day. An excessive urine output is called polyuria. When any person go for urination for number of times, means almost 8 to 10 times in a day, if you are going for 2 to 3 times, it's normal, it's not a critical condition. But when we are going for more frequently, if you are going for number of times, that condition is called as polyuria. So when excessive urine output is called polyuria, and scanty urine output is called oliguria. When we are going for urination for very less time, or very less urine comes from our urethra, drop by drop if urine comes, and if painful urination occurs, so that condition is called as oliguria. And output of less than 400 ml per day is insufficient to excrete toxic waste. So if it is very less, it is a 400 ml per day, so it is very critical condition, because the toxic substances must come out from our body. They should throw out. Otherwise, it can produce problem to our blood as well. If due to improper filtration, the various conditions can be arise. Diabetes is a chronic polyuria resulting from various metabolic disorders, including diabetes mellitus and diabetes insipidus. These are two types of diabetes. They can produce the condition like polyuria. What is polyuria? When we are frequently going for urination, lots of urine formation occurs, due to which urine urge develops. Process of micturition can be increased. Diabetes mellitus. It is caused by either deficiency of insulin or deficiency of insulin receptors. So in the diabetes mellitus, the beta cells from pancreas, the Langerhans cells, they cannot able to secrete insulin, and this insulin is responsible for the use of glucose. Either it will get convert the glucose into glycogen in the storage form, or it will consume that glucose and it will do the breakdown of glucose. It will do the glycolysis. It will use it as a energy source. It is breakdown in the form of ATP. It will form energy. So it is function of insulin, and there are the receptors at this pancreatic cells. At the cells of beta cells of Langerhans, the receptors are there. If these receptors are not available there, due to which no insulin can be released, secreted. So there are two ways: either beta cells can't secrete insulin, or there are no receptors for insulin on beta cells. In diabetes mellitus, features are high glucose in blood. It is called hyperglycemia. So when the blood glucose level is high, it is also one of the symptoms of diabetic mellitus, type 2 diabetic, and it will also release more glucose in urine as well. So what is that? It is called glycosuria. When more glucose comes in our urine, that condition is called as glycosuria. When glucose in tubular fluid exceed the transport maximum, that is 180 mg per 100 ml, it appears in urine. It is called glycosuria. So when it crosses that limit, that is 180 mg per ml or 100 ml, so when it crosses that limit, definitely that glucose will comes in our urine. That condition is called as glycosuria. Glucose in tubular fluid hinders the water reabsorption by osmosis, causing polyuria. So again, the polyuria may occur there, and also these patients are suffer from polydipsia. Polydipsia means they are having thirst for longer period, again and again. Frequent thirst develop, frequent urination followed by the frequent thirst. So they are drinking more, they are doing the urination more. So the high glucose filtrate is there here, high glucose is there, and the returns of H2O by osmosis means water can be regained from this, but glucose cannot regain, because already in blood lots of glucose is there. When it crosses that 180 mg, so that glucose will comes into our urine. That condition is called as glycosuria. That's why our urine smells like sugar. Very sweet urine comes from our urethra. Diabetes insipidus. It is caused by the inadequate ADH secretion. In this condition, there is complete loss of water electrolyte balance. Water electrolyte imbalance occurs. Why it occurs? Due to the inadequate ADH secretion. ADH secretion. What is the role of ADH secretion? If ADH secretion will be there, it will control the release of electrolytes and water from our body. Due to the shortage of ADH, the water reabsorption in the collecting duct compromised and leading to polyuria. Because whatever the water is there in our collecting duct, it can be reabsorbed, regained by this secretion of ADS. If ADS secretion can be hindered or impaired, so due to that condition, the water will not reverse back into the blood. What will happen? It will come again into our collecting duct, and due to which more bulkiness, bulging of the urine occurs, and due to which more time urine can be there. It is called polyuria can be developed. So that typical condition is called as diabetes insipidus. It don't have to do with the insulin, it have to do with this ADH secretion can be decreased. It is going to be produce condition like diabetes insipidus. Don't forget, it is very easy, and don't confuse. Diuresis, it refers to the excretion of large amount of urine, so that process is called as diuresis. The agents which are responsible for diuresis, they are called diuretic. Diuretic are the agents, that the drugs like furosemide or ethicranic acid or spironolactone. These drugs are responsible for increase the flow of urine. They will not only produce the more urine, but also they will increase the flow of urine. And when these diuretics are required, they required in case of the high blood pressure, hypertension. So they are releasing the pressure by releasing the urine from our urinary bladder, because more blood volume will increase the more blood pressure will increase the hypertension, and in this fashion the diuresis is having great role to release our pressure, to decrease our tension, hypertension. Natriuresis, it is a condition which refers to the enhanced urinary excretion of sodium. There are also certain terms that you should know. For example, there is calciuresis, when this calcium comes excretes from our urine. Also there are some certain terms that you should know. It is called hypokalemia. What is hypokalemia? When there is decreased level of potassium in our blood, it is called hypokalemia. Hyperkalemia, when there is increased level of potassium in blood, it is called hyperkalemia. Hypocalcemia, it is a condition when there is decreased level of calcium in our blood. Hypercalcemia, when there is increased level of calcium in our blood. Hyponatremia, when there is nitrogen going to be decreased their level in our blood, hyponatremia. Hypernatremia, when that level of nitrogen going to be increased, level of sodium going to be increased into our blood. So in this fashion there are various terms which occurs in our urinary system that you should know during urine formation. These are the various terms that you should keep in your mind. Diuresis are the chemicals that increase the urine volume. They are used for treating the hypertension and congestive heart failure. Due to congestive heart failure also, heart is not able to contract completely. Heart continuously contract and relax. But in the congestive heart failure, heart is not going to be contract completely, due to which the extra burden, extra load comes on our heart to contract, due to which more blood is there in our heart, in our body, so more pressure comes from the blood. It is called preload comes on our heart. So for releasing that, we are using these diuretics, and because they reduce the overall blood volume, due to which they are decreasing our hypertension, as well as they are decreasing the chances of myocardial infarctions, congestive heart failure. They work by either increasing glomerular filtration or reducing the tubular reabsorptions. Caffeine falls into the former categories, alcohol into the latter. What is the role of alcohol? Alcohol suppresses the release of ADH, and due to which, that's why you might be aware of that the patients who are chronic alcoholic, what they are complaining, what they are facing the problems, they are facing the problems of kidney failure. Their kidney is not going to be reabsorb the vital electrolytes, vital elements, for example potassium, sodium, calcium. These elements are released into the urine as it is, because the rate of filtration can be increased and the kidney doesn't get sufficient time to reabsorb the electrolytes, due to which that electrolytes are passed away, transported from the tubules, from the collecting duct as it is, due to which the loss of electrolytes occurs. So this is the condition which occurs in alcohol. That is the only reason alcohol increases the polyuria, that increasing the process of urine formation and urine release, means urination can be increased in case of alcohol. Many diuretics produce osmotic diuresis by inhibiting sodium reabsorption. Renal function test. Renal clearance. The volume of blood plasma from which a particular waste is removed in a 1 minute. So it is within a 1 minute of time, how much amount of excrete materials, waste materials is removed from our blood, that is nothing but the renal clearance. It can be measured directly by the measuring the waste concentration of blood and urine and the urine volume. So it is simply we are taking the blood sample and urine sample and we are calculating how much amount of the waste material has been cleared from our blood. So it is called renal clearance. It is also one of the kidney function test, by which we are checking our kidney whether it is in intact condition, means it is normal, it is having normal physiology or not, whether it is working properly or not, that we can check by this renal clearance. Next is glomerular filtration rate. We can measure this. GFR requires a substance that is not secreted or reabsorbed at all. Insulin is a polymer or fructose is suitable. Inulin, actually it is a inulin, it is a polymer of fructose is suitable. So by which we are checking this glomerular filtration rates. Insulin filtered by glomeruli remains in the renal tubule and appears in the urine. None is reabsorbed and the tubule does not secrete it. For this solute, GFR is equal to the renal clearance. So in this fashion we can check this glomerular filtration rate as well, means how much that glomerular filtration is occurs in our Bowman's capsule, that you can check here. Hemodialysis. It is the process of artificially do the reverse osmosis of our blood, means it is an artificial filtration unit of our body. What is natural? Kidney. Kidney is a natural filtration unit of our body. But if kidney is not working properly, if both the kidneys are damaged, in that condition, even though if one kidney is damaged, one kidney can take a load of 80% of the whole human blood. It is fact. That's why only in case of both the kidney are damaged, in that case only you have to do this hemodialysis or blood dialysis. In that we have to take the blood from our blood vessels and it can be filtered from here. After filtration, again it can be transferred, means blood can be taken from the artery and it can be filtered here. This is a filtration unit, filtration assembly is here. Also the temperature can be maintained at constant temperature of 37 degrees Celsius of human body temperature. Here it can be filtered and the filtered blood can come here again. So from here, from this artery, blood can be taken here, it can be filtered here and the filter blood can pass over here and it will comes into the vein. So in this fashion, the process of filtration occurs. It is called hemodialysis. Continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis. It is also called as CAPD. In this peritoneal membrane dialysis, from the peritoneal cavity, the fluid can be taken for dialysis, and it is convenient process because from here the fluid can be borrowed very easily from the peritoneal cavity, but it is less efficient as compared with the hemodialysis. It is only process to maintain the electrolyte balance, but for complete blood clearance and blood filtration we require the hemodialysis. Urine storage elimination. Now once the urine has been formed, now it should be transferred, it should be transported through the various organs. Now next is ureter. There is a pair of ureter available in our body. The ureters are near about 25 to 30 centimeter long and thick walled. They are the narrow tubes that vary in diameter from 1 mm to 10 mm. These ureters are having the various layers like mucosa, after that transitional epithelium, lamina propria, and muscularis and adventitia. It will starts from the thoracic vertebra, from here, and it will ends into here at the sacrum vertebra. So there are a pair of ureters are there that can emerge from this kidney, from the renal pelvis, and they will connect to the urinary bladder. Now next is urinary bladder. It is a muscular sac on the floor of pelvic cavity. It is highly distensible and expanded superiorly. Here you can see this is the position of urinary bladder. It is near the large intestine and it is behind the pubic symphysis bone. Here is the pubic symphysis bone, it is just behind that, and it is just above the urethra. Also it is near the, in case of female, the ovary and uterus is there. It is also just near the uterus and ovaries as well. And this it is the hollow distensible muscular organ which situated near the pelvic cavity. And this urinary bladder is also having the 4 layers. That first is mucosa, which is made up of transitional epithelium cells. These transitional epithelium cells are responsible for requirement for more stretching and more elastic. So they are providing the more elasticity. When there is more urine, it will stretch into the large volume. When there is less urine, in that condition they will contract. So they are giving more elasticity to the urinary bladder. They are composed of lamina propria. After that they are also having the ruggi. Ruggi is composed of the muscularis. Muscularis is also called as detrusor muscle, which consists of 3 layers of smooth muscles: inner longitudinal, middle circular, and again outer longitudinal cells. And the last and the final layer is called adventitia. Around the opening of urethra, the circular fibers from the internal urethral sphincter is there, and the inferior to it is the external urethral sphincter. So these 2 sphincters are responsible for voluntary removal of the urine. They are the centers for voluntary centers for removal of this urine, which is composed of skeletal muscles and is modification of deep muscle of this perineum. So in this fashion, this urinary bladder is having great role for release of urine from our body. The opening of two ureters and the urethra mark a triangular area is called trigone. This is the trigone which produces by the two ureters and the urethra. This trigone is the part. The urethra, it conveys the urine from urinary bladder to the outside of the body. In females its size is 3 to 4 centimeters, but in case of males it is near about 18 centimeter. From here to here it is 18 centimeter. In case of females it is 3 to 4 centimeter. In females they are the greatest risk of urinary tract infection due to this less area, because that's why they are having the infections of urinary tract infections. The male urethra has three regions: prostatic urethra here, membranous urethra which is near the bulbary urethra, and this is near the prostatic gland, and penile urethra which is a part of penis. In this fashion it can be divided into three parts of urethra. In both sexes, internal urethral sphincter under the involuntary control, and the external urethral sphincter is under the voluntary control. So this is the centers for voluntary control, which can control the release of the urine from the urethra. Voiding urine infants. Micturition reflex. When the bladder contains about 200 ml of urine, stretch receptors in the wall send impulses to the spinal cord. The parasympathetic signals return to the stimulate contraction of the bladder and relaxing of the internal urethral sphincter there. So the micturition reflex, it occurs by this way. First point, when the urine is almost 200 ml, so it gives signals to the stress muscles. These stress muscles will start to give signals to the brain. After that, what happens? The spinal cord, from here the message will go toward the brain, and from here what they are doing? From here they will give messages to the urinary bladder here at this point, and from here it will start to contract. Here this is the involuntary muscles will open, means they will start to release this urine, and also these muscles from the transitional epitheliums, they will start to contract. And after that, at this fifth, from the pons, again the message goes there that this has been this portion has been released. This message go here, and after that from the brain again through the motor neuron, because this can be controlled by the voluntary muscles. So the motor neurons comes here, takes their roles. After that, the seventh point is also there, and from this somatic motor fibers the voluntary control is there. From here also it will continue, and from this somatic skeletal muscles fibers, they will release this sphincter. This is the sphincter, voluntary sphincter, for release of our urine through urinary bladder. So in this fashion the voluntary control can be maintained by, there is a role of the muscle, stress muscles, there are some signals, there are some ganglia are required at this position of sacral positions. There are also requirements of sensory neuron, motor neurons, and the somatosensory neuron is also there. So in this fashion the voluntary control occurs. Now maintenance of water and balance, this is also very important. The kidney is doing the major functions of maintaining water balance. Water intake must equal to the water output, and it is very cleverly maintained by our kidney. Source for water intake, ingested food, after that fluids, for example water and other foods, water produced from metabolic processes. So these all are nothing but the various water intake. Now sources for water output, vaporization through uh, the sweat, vaporization through the lungs also, during talking also, through mouth also vapors comes out, through the lungs also, through nostrils the vapors comes out. Loss of perspiration, when we are having too much sweating, during that also the water will come out. Leaving the body in feces, during feces also the water will come out. And during the urine production, and urine will be released, the water can be released through urine as well. Now dilute urine is produced if water intake is excess. Less urine is produced, means more concentrated urine will produce if large amount of water are lost already. Proper concentration of various electrolytes must be present. So it can be always maintained by the various hormonal control is there. For example, ADS is having very great role. If less water intake is there or more dehydration is there, in that condition ADS will control the release of water through our urine. Regulation of water and electrolyte reabsorptions. Regulation is primarily by hormones. In that, this is the major hormone, antidiuretic hormone, which can be released from the pituitary gland, and it prevents the excessive water loss in urine. Next is aldosterone. This is the aldosterone is the hormone which can be secreted from these adrenal glands. Adrenal, they are at the upper portion of the kidney. So adrenal gland can secrete this aldosterone, and it can be released into our nephron. Into our nephron there is the distal convoluted tubule. In that convoluted tubule there are the principal cells. These principal cells are releasing this aldosterone, and they are having great role for controlling reabsorption of sodium ions of the extracellular fluid. So they are increasing the absorption of sodium ions from the lumen into the bloodstream, and also triggered by the renin-angiotensin mechanism. That is also we will discuss today again. These are the major elements: ADH, aldosterone, and the renin-angiotensin system. Cells in the kidney and the hypothalamus are active monitors. Now here we will discuss how this water electrolyte balance can be maintained with the help of renin-angiotensin system. Whatever the points which are given in green color, these all are part of the RAA system, renin-angiotensin aldosterone system, RAA. It starts from the falling systemic blood pressure. Once the blood pressure can be fall, it gives signals to the brain, and due to which the reduced filtrate volume of solute contained in renal tubule, due to which the renal tubule volume can be decreased. The juxtaglomerular cells of kidney, what they will do? They will release the renin. The macular denser cell of our juxtaglomerulus apparatus, they will release the renin, and this renin release is responsible for this conversion of angiotensin 1 to the angiotensin 2. This angiotensin 2 form in blood, whereas angiotensin 1 form in liver, and it can be get converted from angiotensin 1 to 2 by the enzyme angiotensin converting enzymes, and that enzyme can be controlled by this renin. Now after that, once it will form the angiotensin 2, it will systemic arterioles can be constricted. This angiotensin 2 will do the constriction of systemic arterioles, and due to which the peripheral resistance can be increased, and finally rising in blood pressure. And their second effect by this process is that once the angiotensin 2 will form, what it will do? It will stimulate adrenal cortex to release the hormone aldosterone, and once the aldosterone will secrete as a mineralocorticoid into the adrenal gland, due to which the kidney tubules at the DCT, distal convoluted tubule, principal cells are there, they will release the aldosterone. Here release with different side, and the secretion at our kidney tubules, DCT, principal cells, and due to which the sodium ions are reabsorbed into our blood. So due to which again H2O also absorbed, means water as well as the sodium ions can be restored into our blood, and due to that more blood volume will be there, blood volume can be increased, enlarged, and the ultimate effect is there is increase into our total peripheral resistance, and due to increased peripheral resistance will increase the blood volume, blood pressure, and it will leads into the hypertension. So in this fashion the blood pressure can be increased by the another process. The causes of activities like baroreceptors in blood vessels, so they will increase the sympathetic nervous system. This nervous system, they will produce the sympathetic arterioles to cause the vasoconstriction, and due to the peripheral resistance will develop, and same they produce the blood pressure. And by another way, to the hypothalamic osmoreceptors, the posterior pituitary, they will release the ADH. Due to the release of ADH, the collecting duct at the kidney, they will cause the reabsorption of H2O, means H2O will revert back into our bloodstream, and ultimate effect will be blood volume, and final effect will be raise in blood pressure. So in this fashion, my dear students, we have discussed regarding the renin-angiotensin system, RAS. So if in examination somebody will ask you what is the RAS, that you should know, and you should able to write this diagram. This is in short manner, it is a precise diagram by which you can understand this RAS system. Maintaining acid base balance in blood, this is also very important topic in our kidney, in our urinary system. How to maintain the acid base balance? The blood pH must retain between 7.35 to 7.45, this is the range, and the mean value is 7.4 to maintain the homeostasis. What is alkalosis? When the pH above 7.45 means the blood becomes more alkaline. When it becomes more alkaline, when there is the involvement of that bicarbonate ions, when that HCO3 minus ions will increase in our blood, it will produce the alkalosis. Acidosis, when there is increase of more H plus ion, which produce the blood more acidic when it is below 7.35 pH. In the most ions originate as byproducts of cellular metabolism, like bicarbonates and H plus ions. Most acid base balance is maintained by the kidney. Other acid base control system is blood buffers and the respiration. In respiration also lots of acid base balance can be maintained, and in our blood also through our various chemicals are there, the chemoreceptors are there, they are maintaining our blood into our they are maintaining our pH, they are maintaining our acid base balance into our blood. There are certain buffers. What are buffers? Buffers are nothing but the combination of weak acid or weak base along with their salt with strong base. So the buffers are also available in our blood. Now this is the last point that we should discuss. It is called disorders of kidney, and after this our kidney, our urinary system will over. Now in that first disease or disorder is ptosis. It is also called as nephroptosis. It is nothing but the drooping down of the kidneys. When the kidney becomes hanged, when they are losing their position from the peritoneal cavity, when they are dropped down, that condition is called as ptosis or nephroptosis. Next is hydronephrosis. This hydronephrosis is nothing but the condition when the kidneys are filled with the urine, more urine is there in our kidneys. Why it is there? Because the passage between kidneys and ureter, during that tubule there may be some blockage or occlusion occurs. Due to that, there is a black flow of urine from ureter toward the kidney, toward the renal pelvis, and due to which the kidney is full with the urine. That condition is called as hydronephritis. Next is pilates. This pilates is nothing but the inflammation of our kidney. When the inflammation occurs, so that condition is called as, and this occurs mostly in case of the female, pilates. Next is pyelonephritis. When there is inflammation of renal pelvis part, so that condition is called as pyelonephritis. In this condition, there is pain is there during micturition, and also there is decreased level of urination occurs, oliguria also occurs along with that, and this may produce due to the bacterial infection. Also this pilates is also going to be produced due to the bacterial infections. This is most common in case of females, pilates. Next is anuria. This is also very critical condition, anuria. This is the condition when there is loss or decreased level of urination occurs. It may be due to the occlusion of our urinary tract, completely blockage of urine or urine formation or urine release occurs. That condition is called as anuria. It can be produced due to the blockage, due to some mass development or kidney failure or renal failure. It is called anuria. Next is hyperuria. So this is the condition when there is excessive secretion of urine, when the more urine can be produced and more release, more and more urine release. It can be accompanied by the polyuria. More frequently micturition, urination occurs again and again. So that condition is called as hyperuria. Both the conditions are differ from each other. They are reversely proportional. Next is hypospadias. This hypospadias mostly occurs in case of males. It is a condition which occurs during the development of baby. You will find in case of infants mostly. And what is that? It is a condition when we are having two sphincters. So when our external sphincter of the urethra doesn't work, it doesn't open outside, it opens inside. By side it opens, due to which urine doesn't comes out outside or not properly comes out, and due to which also there is a problem into urination. Painful urination occurs, or urination occurs by drop, and pain is there during urination. So that condition is called hypospadias. It is congenital disorder which carries from one generation to another generation, and it is very rare disease. Next is diabetes insipidus. This is the occurs due to the completely loss of electrolyte balance. Water and electrolyte balance occurs. That condition is called as diabetes insipidus, and it is mostly occurs due to the problem into the release of antidiuretic hormone, ADS hormone, which controls our release of electrolytes into our urine. If ADS doesn't secrete, due to which what happens, more and more urine formation occurs and more urine release will occur, and it will produce the condition like polyuria, and due to which the person will frequently go for urination, frequently micturition occurs. Next is cystocele. Cystocele mostly occurs in case of females, and it is a condition when there is the urinary bladder will bulge into the vagina. When it can transfer into the vagina, and also in case of males, when that prostate will going to be give pressure on the urinary bladder and it will drop down. So that condition is called as cystocele. And this is also critical conditions for which sometimes we have to do the surgery as well as. Next is renal calculi. This is the another word for kidney stone. Why this occurs? This occurs due to the layer of deposition of salt develops it at the various positions. Either it will develop at the ureter, either it will develop into the renal pelvis, or it will develop into the medulla or papilla. So in the kidney, at any part of kidney it will develop ureter, or at your urinary bladder. At the junction of urinary bladder also the renal calculi can be developed. It is also one of the cause of the more erythroid containing waters, or when your kidney is going to produce more concentrated urine, the concentration urine may contain more salt, and that more salt layer can be deposited one above the another, and it will form the lots of crystals, and that crystals will produce the renal calculi or kidney stone. Nowadays it is very common. The problem is that we are not taking sufficient amount of water in a day. If you are taking at least 2 liters of water in a day, so no renal calculi or no kidney stone will develop. Next is urethritis. It is a condition when there is inflammation of urethra occurs. It can be occur due to the STD, sexual transmitted diseases. Also it can develop due to the prostate glands. If prostate is going to be swell, or it is having impact on the urethra, it is indulging into the urethra. It can be developed by the bacterial or viral infections. It can be transferred from male one person to the another person through sexually. Cystitis. Cystitis are nothing but the sac-like proportions are developed which are filled with the fluid. They may similarities to the urine. They contain the fluid. It may contain water or urine. Fluid is there. Fluid sac is there, and that small tiny sacs are they are immersed from the kidney. In the kidney they are immersed. It is just like the seeds into the guava or into the pomegranate, like that they are immersed from the kidney, and it is very worse condition. They will produce the kidney failure because they will arrange all over the kidney, and kidney can't do its function normally, because almost they will cover 70% part of our kidney, due to which kidney can't do its function properly. It is very critical condition. That clusters can be formed which will produce the inflammation of our urinary bladder. Now next is incontinence. That incontinence is the condition when we don't have control on our urination. Voluntary control is going to be lost. So that condition is called as incontinence. So the urination occurs when we are having cough reflex, we are having emotional stress, we are having the severe anxiety, or if you are laughing, or if we are not getting bathroom at proper time, so urination occurs in our pant. So that condition is called as incontinence. And mostly this also occurs in case of the baby. In kids it is very common. Night bleeding is the problem. It is nothing but the example of incontinence. For that we are giving the A pills. It is also accompanied with the antidiuretic hormone ADH. Next is urinary retention. It is a condition when the urine can be retained into our urinary bladder. Urine cannot come out. Oliguria is there. Only drop by drop urine will come out. So more pain is there at your abdomen. Lots of pain is there during urination as well. It can be produced by the bacterial infections. Our kidney is full with the urine. Next is horseshoe kidney. This is the condition which develops during the development of baby in mother's womb. In placenta it develops when both the kidneys are aligned and they are attached to each other during development, and they will produce the horseshoe like shape, and that condition is called as horseshoe kidney. Both the kidneys are joined together. That is also one of the critical condition and very rare condition it occurs. Next is polycystic kidney. When lots of cysts are developed and that cysts are go along with the kidney, they will cover both the kidneys, and due to this cyst they are the sac which contain the fluid, and they will not allow to do kidney through their function, and finally they will get converted into the renal failure. Next is renal infarct. Renal infarct can be produced by two ways. Renal infarction is also called as renal infarction, like myocardial infarction. So this can be produced by two ways, either by the thromboembolia formation or by C2 thrombus formation. What is thromboembolia formation? When the thrombus form, when the clotting forms in the aorta or in heart, either aorta or in the heart, that is called as thromboembolia formation. That is one way by which this renal infarct will form, and another is that when our clot or any thrombi will form into our ureter. So in this fashion the renal infarction will be there. So in this fashion we have covered all DCS. If any DCS will remain, that we can discuss afterwards. So thank you very much for hearing me. Bye.